So the next thing that I would like to demo is an external module that's called the form completion module. And what it does is it allows you to set some criteria to automatically have your form status update to complete. So once again, the first thing we have to do is go into external modules and then click enable a module. And if you start typing form completion check, it'll pop up if it wasn't enabled. But since it's enabled, it's going to show up here. And the configuration, there's two options that you have to consider. There's two avenues that you can take to set up your completion check. One is using the action tag at completion check, which is what they recommend. And the second one is field name starting with a defined prefix. So if you have one field or multiple fields that you kind of want to group together and have this module compare them and check them, you would give them the same field prefix. And then the next thing is that if you want to still have your users be able to override this. So if it automatically sets it to complete, but you want to have a user be able to override it, then you would select yes here. And if not, then you would select this as no. So I have these both checked because I'm going to show you both ways of doing this. And what this does is it allows you basically create a descriptive text field that you attach branching logic to. And whether this field is shown or hidden is what triggers the status update, whether it's complete or not. So if we go to the designer here, and the first one is using the completion check, which is the action tag. So I have these fields here: first name, middle name, last name, date of birth. All of them are required except for the middle name. And in my descriptive field here, I just have a banner that just says, please complete all required fields. This is only going to show up if one of these fields is blank. So my branching logic is first name equals blank, or last name equals blank, or date of birth equals blank. So if this field appears, the form is going to be considered incomplete. If this field is hidden, then it's going to consider that form as complete. And the way it does that is you have to put this at completion check action tag in the field that you're using to check your completion. So if we go to the records, and I'll just add a new record here. You can see here by default, this banner shows up because none of the fields are complete. And if I just put one of them, it's still popping up, and can't spell my last name. And if so it'll stay until I add the birth date. So now all of the fields are filled in, the required fields rather. That goes away. This updates to complete automatically. And if I delete something here and tab out, it's going to automatically pop that banner back up, and it's going to automatically change this to incomplete. So that's what the module does. It's very simple to create. You have to have this banner here if you, like for example, if I just go back here and let's say I don't want this to show up by default. I only want it to show up, like I don't want it to show up, but I still want to use it to mark it as complete. The problem is if I hide it, it'll work initially. So let me refresh here. This will, so it doesn't pop up, but now if I just do the autofill form, this is a nice little feature we have for administrators. We can do this for autofill. It should have done this as, it should have said complete here. So let me go back to, let's leave this and start fresh. Because earlier when I was testing it, it would work the first time, but it wouldn't work if you deleted something. So there we go. So you can see here that all my values are filled in. This is marked as complete. Everything looks good, right? But if I go back and I delete something and I tab out of it, this doesn't change. So part of the functionality is tied to whether that banner shows up or not. So if it doesn't show up, it's not going to trigger this to change again. So I would recommend having this banner. It doesn't have to be a big banner like this either. It could be anything. It's just as long as it's a descriptive text field. You could have this as, let me just copy this to my clipboard. I'm gonna put it back. You could have this as a blank field that has nothing in it. And you'll see here, it's just the tiniest of spaces, but it'll be visible. So if you don't want a big banner that pops up, you can have it small like this. People won't even notice it's there. So let me go back to the dashboard and add a record. And if we do the autofill here, you'll see that little space for the descriptive text field disappeared. But now, hopefully, if I delete this and go and come back, that pops back up. This changes to incomplete again, and it, vice versa. If I fill out the fields, it goes back to complete. So if you don't want to have a banner that pops up, you don't have to. There just has to be a descriptive text field that you're using with this completion check action tag. So that's the first.
Manny,
Yes.
I'm sorry, one quick question. So it marks it complete. Is it actually saved?
It's not saved yet.
So you'd still, even though it's marked complete, you'd have to save it.
Yeah, you would still have to save.
Okay.
If I did like save and stay.
And then Carrie had a question. Can you include additional fields after the last required field that are not required?
Yeah, and that's the thing. You can set this as, they don't have to be required. They're not, what's interesting is it's not using this required at all. It's only using the branching logic that I set up. So that's a good question. You can, whatever your criteria is to consider your form complete, that's what you would set up as the branching logic for this descriptive text field. So let's say first, in order to consider this complete, first name would have to be Manuel, last name would have to be Snyder. We update that. And then let's say we take off the requirements for these. And because the banner is just a custom banner that I created that said all required field, please complete all required fields. So now we don't have any requirements, but my completion check says that, let's say that it has to just be my first name and last name, right? And let's just add another record here. So now you can see that this banner isn't popping up at all. And if I do like Terry Smith, it should pop up. Oh,
Put it in the middle name.
yeah, but I also I have or and not and. And it should pop up automatically. Let's see. I keep picking the wrong field. So let's say, let's just go ahead and make these blank again and see if it pops up.
Make it or.
Or,
Well, I mean,
yeah, we can go back to the way it was. Because ideally, we're just testing that the requirement, because it shouldn't be that it's not linked to the required fields as far as I know. There we go. So this pops up now. None of these fields are required. But if I add a value to those first and last name, then that goes away and that changes to complete. So it's whatever branching logic you set for this completion check field. And it doesn't have to just be one field. So the next thing is that it can be multiple fields that have a prefix. So for example, if I want a banner for the first name, last name, and the date of birth, as long as I have this rec underscore prefix for the fields, then the module is going to go through those and use the branching logic for those. So right here I have that first name 2 is not blank, last name 2 is not blank, date of birth is not blank. So if we go to that instrument, once again, you see that these pop up. And if I add my name, that first one goes away. It doesn't mark this as complete because there are still 2 other banners that are popping up that it's looking for the criteria. It's checking for completion. So last name is there. And then if I do the birth date, now it's going to mark it as complete. But if I go back and take out the name, it's going to pop the banner back up and then it's going to mark that as incomplete. So it's just another way to do that. And you could also, you don't have to do like if you want multiple requirement checks, you don't have to use the prefix. You could do it both ways. You would just have to make sure, like if we did this the other way, you would just have to make sure that this had completion check, and completion check in the action tags. Let's see. So we have someone in the chat says, is it possible to set the form as other types of status for the participant follow-up form or the data collector calls? Our rule is that if the participant does not pick up the phone call, the form must be marked as unverified, but the data collectors always forget to mark the form as unverified instead of complete. Not with this module. This only marks things as complete or incomplete. But there might be a way to do that with JavaScript, the JavaScript injector. So if you want to maybe message me offline, send me an email, we can take a look at that and see if that's something we can do.
I also put in a question, Manny,
Oh, let me scroll up.
above that.
If you have required fields that are not in the branching logic, what happens? Nothing. It's you're gonna get the same red cap error, that always pops up and says that required fields are missing values. But this strictly goes off of the branching logic that you have as part of your completion check field.
Okay, so in your other example, that one, if
Yeah.
you added some required fields after these, don't change those.
Well, here I'll make hold on.
An address field that's required, it would still stop you.
Yeah, I'll make middle name required since it's not part of the branching logic.
Okay.
So now if we go back to this, so let's say I filled out that, and I filled out the so it's marking it as complete, but this is missing, right?
Right, and so if you hit save,
it's going to tell me that it's
okay, so it does tell, it still uses the old functionality there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So the required fields functionality still works. And then you would just as long as you add a value to that, because that's the thing is and this is so you can see here that it marked it as unverified, which is interesting. I'll have to look at, and you can look at the documentation. Let's see. It says that user can set the status unverified, but when they select other options, the status is set by the module for no. So I'm not sure why that changed. Interesting. That might be something I'll have to look at offline. This doesn't, yeah, because I don't know how that happened. Cause see, now it's complete.
Because it's saved. When you hit the save and stay, and then it comes back and tells you, hey, you need to answer these other questions. So is it like partially saved at that point?
No, so if we did a brand new record, it shouldn't save anything unless we say to save it. So like, but I have noticed that if you see that, like if I click the autofill again, it goes to unverified.
Oh,
And
Huh.
and regular users aren't gonna have to worry about this, but because they can't autofill. And this could be something as part of the autofill code that's it's putting a value in for all the fields, and so it's just changing that value from unverified or complete to unverified just because I'm clicking on this. But you can see here, like if I just toggle through, if I'm just clicking autofill, I think that's what it is it's just automatically assigning a value.
oh, because it's auto-filling that field too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take away Rock, the middle name, hit save and stay. Okay, so if you notice, the green bubble is now green, and so it is in the background being saved partially, I believe, because it was not green before you hit save and stay.
Yeah. So if I hit OK, and then if I left this, like if I go back to the record status dashboard, yeah, well, I guess it does save. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense because it gives you that option that,
The record, right?
yeah, it's giving, so it's saving it, and then you're saying, yeah, okay, I'll go back and fix it, or no, I'll ignore it. Yeah, I've never noticed that. Does anybody have any other questions or comments about that one?